The coming Russian nuclear Pearl Harbor. The U.S. military and political leadership has made a tremendous miscalculation, allowing Russia a nuclear first strike capability. The fact that Russia now has the capability to carry out a nuclear Pearl Harbor makes such a war 1,000 times more likely. Our government has shown incredible gullibility and complacency in the face of a resurgent Russia and China both. Russia has fielded entire new classes of missiles, powerful missiles, and missile platforms, while the United States has watched and done practically nothing. The latest Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles are designed to be MIRVs, missiles that can carry many nuclear warheads on a single missile, in effect turning one missile into 10. This threat is even worse than imagined because these missiles can carry even more than 10 warheads. They were designed years ago with this Super MIRV capability and mission in mind. This is not an accident. Between new mobile MIRV missiles, new missile submarines, new medium-range missiles in Europe, and cheating on their treaty agreements, the Russians now possess a first strike capability that can lead directly to the kind of war that previously had been unthinkable. The U.S. administration and the military will publicly deny that the Russians have a nuclear checkmate. But that will not change the facts. The American government spends 65% of the federal budget, the yearly budget, on military and intelligence. About $1 trillion a year. And yet the Russians now have the capability to defeat us in nuclear combat. Unlike during the Cold War, the Russian missiles are now extremely accurate, and they know the exact location of all U.S. military bases. The U.S. nuclear deterrent is a triad, a three-legged stool, consisting of incredibly vulnerable land-based missiles sitting in silos, nuclear-capable aircraft on bases, and nuclear weapons at sea, nuclear submarines for the most part. All the missile silos and air bases are zeroed in by Russian nuclear forces and can be destroyed totally in less than an hour using these MIRV weapons. The submarine component of the triad is designed to be invisible and therefore invulnerable to surprise attack. These 12 submarines that are always at sea are virtually all that stands between the United States and a nuclear Pearl Harbor, except that these very large and expensive submarines will soon no longer be invisible, if they're even still hidden from the enemy at all. What if the Russians could use satellite technology, satellites, and find all of our missile submarines in the ocean, wherever they are, no matter how deep they dive or how quietly they move? These submarines are enormous pieces of metal, in effect, that distort the Earth's gravitational field and can be detected easily by a magnetometer of sufficient sensitivity. The Russians can currently use 10 to 15% of their nuclear missiles, land-based missiles and submarine-launched missiles, to launch a first strike against the United States and knock out 90 to 95% of all of our nuclear forces in less than an hour. Now, in less than an hour, the U.S. will only have 5% of our nuclear weapons left, while the Russians would still retain more than 80 or 85% of their weapons. Less than an hour will go by and the President of the United States' phone will ring. On the other end is the Russian President. He will demand that the U.S. surrender our remaining nuclear weapons, or 95% of our population will be destroyed. He will explain that with our remaining nuclear forces, we can only manage to knock out 15% of their general population, while they can destroy 90% of ours. Our population is more vulnerable because it is more concentrated into larger cities than theirs. Their general population is more dispersed, making this scenario even more likely. They will be able to recover after losing 10 or 15% of their general population in 20 or 30 years, they will claim, and they are probably right. But the United States, after losing 90% of its general population, will cease to exist. Things have deteriorated to this degree because the United States has been complacent. We have followed our treaty commitments and have allowed the Russians to cheat. We have concentrated our forces on a few very large and expensive platforms like these missile submarines and aircraft carriers instead of dispersing our forces, and we have not made allowance for emerging satellite technological capabilities that should have been foreseen. The Russian land-based missiles are mobile launchers, unlike ours. Theirs can evade detection, while ours are in fixed silos waiting to be destroyed easily. They are in effect bait for a first strike. Finally, the Russians have been waging an undeclared war against the West, and we, the United States and our allies, have not responded in a manner that would deter further aggression. The Russian government is about to go broke due to economic sanctions over Crimea and the collapse of the price of oil. In 1940, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the president, placed sanctions on militaristic, fascistic Japan that would, in order to dissuade them from continuing their bloody invasion of China. These sanctions crippled the economy of Japan to the extent they felt that they had no option other than to attack the United States and to invade the surrounding areas of their country and take the resources their economy needed to function. Russia will be bankrupt very soon and feel that they too have run out of options. What in the world are the responsible parties in this country thinking? And what are they doing about this dire situation? Generals are always fighting the last war. Ours are building the modern equivalent of battleships. Large, expensive, obsolete, and vulnerable hardware. This is not going to be a popular message that I am giving at the Pentagon, on Capitol Hill, or in the White House. It does not mean it is not true, even if they deny it vehemently. In 1921, Lieutenant Billy Mitchell used an airplane to sink a battleship to demonstrate that building battleships was a strategic mistake. He so enraged the top brass, showing that they were spending vast sums on obsolete weapons, that he was court-martialed and run out of the army. The window of vulnerability to a Russian first strike increases the odds of war by 1,000-fold. Let's fix the problem and not shoot the messenger. Thank you.